Have you ever looked at someone's quilted artwork where they've painted and quilted the whole design and you're left wondering, how on earth did they do that? How was it painted? How on earth was it quilted? Let me share it with you. Hi, I'm Helen Gordon and I'm an art quilter from Australia, and I'm going to show you and explain to you my whole process for how I created this orchid design. I call it an awkward orchid because it's a rather abstract fantasy kind of style flower. But let me tell you how I make this. So I start with a piece of unwashed calico, or you might call it muslin. It's a very basic cotton fabric that has got sizing in it, and it's that sizing that enables me to paint with dye directly onto that fabric without any bleed, without any movement, having 100% control. So that's how I've painted this design onto the fabric. I've then, once it's dry, ironed it, and I've then outlined the whole piece with my black marker, my Sharpie marker, to give the definition of the design. You can see some of the beautiful salt work on there too. The patterning on those petals is where I've put salt, rock salt, on the work whilst it was still wet, and those gorgeous patterns appear. It's kind of magic actually. So then I sandwich the whole piece, which means the batting and the backing, in preparation for the quilting. I've then put black thread on my machine and outlined the whole piece, stitching into that black outline that I've already created, and then starting to add extra patterning, which you can see here on the leaves, adding extra detail and adding more information into the design itself. I just love all the colours and the salt effect. It comes together beautifully. So this whole piece took me about half an hour to paint and about half an hour to quilt, and probably an hour to make this video. But behind that seemingly quick process is 40 years experience of painting on fabric and 20 years experience now of quilting. Now I'm quilting on my Handi Quilter Sweet 16 and I have got this video sped up, but I do quilt very quickly. There'll be a section very soon that I'll share with you that shows it to you in real time. And now I've just moved down to the bottom section and I'm stitching my signature on there, freehand, and this is actually stitching in real speed. So you can see there, this is how I normally stitch, but I would be stitching my name slower than I normally can stitch because, you know, writing my name is a bit more complex than just echoing lines. So now I've swapped over to the cream thread, and again the video is sped up, but it's the cream thread on the cream background, so it just gives beautiful texture. It's quite forgiving because the cream doesn't really stand out, but as I say, it's all about the texture. The occasional jump stitch there to get across to another area, and I'm just echoing and deciding which shapes I want to emphasize. So I'm always looking for the big, smooth, flowing, elegant shapes to emphasize rather than some smaller, awkward, perhaps angular shapes. So working my way around, adding all this quilting, which gives it kind of shadows too, which actually enhances the texture. When this is hung in particular light, it'll actually give the whole flower movement and vibration. It'll look like the flower is almost bobbing in the breeze. Yeah, I do love the effect the quilting can give a piece. Still working on that echo stitching, and you can see the batting underneath that piece of fabric there. It's looking a bit shaggy on the edge. That's one of the beauties of when the work's finished. I get to trim all the edges off, and it just makes it look so much more finished, ready for the binding. It's always a joy to trim off the daggy bits and make sure it looks really nice. Also, when I'm stitching near the edge, I will continue to stitch even into the very edge that I know is going to get cut off, by the binding, but I don't want to be left with that awkward little corner where I didn't manage to do my stitching and then I have to go back and fill it in later. Very annoying. So I'd rather stitch right out to the edge, knowing that it's more than likely going to get cut off and trimmed when it's neatened, ready for its binding, but at least the whole thing is quilted and ready for that binding to actually happen. I'm working on my Handi Quilter Sweet 16, and that's what gives me that free movement to make such large sweeping shapes, because the machine has got a very large throat space, which means the quilt has got plenty of movement, and I can just keep guiding that quilt and getting those flowing lines. It really is what makes the difference to being able to create with such flowing, smooth, fluid movements. Just a few little areas there I noticed weren't quite finished, so jumping in there, I stitched across that coloured area. I'll grab my Sharpie later and just colour over those white stitches and no one will know. There we go, let's have a look at the finished product. You can see how the light catches the texture of the cream stitching, and the black has really defined it with all the extra patterning, and then the salt, how it does magic things to that dye. So this now just gets the binding put on and it's ready to sell. And this is what I love to do, is to create these fantasy flowers that are just made up in gorgeous colours and enjoy the whole process. And there you have it, all stitched on my Handi Quilter Sweet 16. Thanks for watching. Education and inspiration from HelenQuilt.com.